confessions. This is called helping strangers. Trying to read a book on the train to Waterloo, I'm interrupted by a conversation across the aisle. Is it true that washing your hair in fairy liquid will take out all the dye? Her companion looks unsure. So I call over to them. Yes, it's true. They look at me, bewildered. I consider backing up my first lie by telling them that I know what I'm talking about, being a professional hairdresser. But they get out at the next station. Satisfied, I go back to my book. I always try to help such deserving young people. Now, somebody here was talking about husbands, talking about women and men. By chance, I have a poem here which might be useful to a lot of us. How to avoid divorce. I've been a true and faithful wife to every husband that I've had. I promised to devote my life through thick and thin, through good and bad, but only while this rule applies. What I decide shall be, and there our problem lies. When Johnny led me up the aisle, and with a manly, loving smile agreed that he would have and hold me, I loved him then. They never told me I'd have to iron 8 shirts a week. And when I ventured, could we speak about this imposition on my valuable time? Dear John insisted this was what he'd meant when opting for the sacrament. As a blunt instrument, the iron was great. John's status quickly changed to late. My second love was handsome Dave. Before we married, he would rave about the cute and charming way I spent our weekends. How I lay in bed, expecting cups of tea and tasty meals to come to me. 1 week past our honeymoon, I found that Dave had changed his tune. Get up, he said, and get me bacon, eggs, and toast. Come on, you do have legs. I went downstairs and laid a tray. I brought Dave's last meal up that day. I even brought an appetizer, grapefruit laced with fertilizer. Sliced thinly, chopped and barbecued, he flushed quite neatly down the loo. An optimist, I've tried and tried. 5 times I've been a blushing bride. But June said, this house is disgusting. Don't you ever do the dusting? I got a broom and hit him hard. He's buried out there in the yard. And Jack would criticise my driving. A hit and run stopped him surviving. My 5th was very critical. Poor man, he had a fatal fall. So I was in an awful fix. I had to find mate number 6. I thought I'd find a poet who would sing and rhyme and sweetly woo.
I love your stuff.
Live ever after. I don't anticipate disaster. I warned him, should he ever criticise my writing, my sharp pen between his eyes will send him up to husband heaven. And then I'll have to look for number 7.
It's a wonder I'm still alive.
If anything happens to you, we get the tea.
I'm very fond of animals, though. This is called animal psychology, and I think there really are animal psychologists, but this was before I'd heard of them. Wanderlust is not uncommon amongst hamsters, since they first perfected travelling on wheels. Schadenfreude is a trait that some rabbits, 1 in 8, will admit to, with vicious little squeals. Claustrophobia is a problem for the ferret. For them, travelling in trousers makes them sick. Hysteria is found in many moles underground, so they have to dig their tunnels very quick. Glaukenstuke is what every goldfish feels when it knows it has been revelling too much in the sufferings of flatfish who are bullied by the catfish or the battered cod the cats won't even touch. Aphasia can be fatal in a parrot. Dyspraxia affects 1 snake in 3. Guinea pigs who can't relax get mild panic attacks, but respond quite well to water therapy. Thank you. Another animal poem. Well, it's about Southwest trains, which we no longer use because they're too expensive. And things like this can happen. It's called Mind the Gap Between Reality and Southwest train services. The train now standing on platform 2 is the 1825 departing for the zoo. This train has 5 cobras and a buffalo car. Anacondas are available if you're travelling far. Hyenas in the silent zone are stifling their screams. A vulture with a mobile phone is working hard, it seems. The parrots are unanimous. They're making noisy claims. You must have a valid ticket to travel on one of our trains. A flock of sheep is twittering because they miss connections, but all the goats are smiling, eating chocolate confections. Please ensure your luggage does not obstruct the aisle, for bears are coming down the train in growling single file. Don't put your feet upon the seat, nor your hooves nor paws. Retract your claws for safety. These are our railroad laws. Please take your meerkats with you. Check the overhead rack. Alligators left there are seldom given back. Have a safe onward trip. Take care and mind the gap. For sometimes there are tigers emerging from the track. As you hear from that, I am very fond of nonsense poetry. And my favourite book when I was a child was Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I wanted it for Christmas and they got me Disney instead of the proper book. I got up at 2 a.m, rifling through what Father Christmas had sent me, and I couldn't find any Lewis Carroll at all, because I have this horrible Disney stuff. However, Alice in Office Land. 'Twas Friday, and the compulads did crickle on the scribble screens. All done with it were the bossy wolves, in shirties red and green. The afterbore had uttered jokes until the air was bugger blue. The secretary ladies goggle-gigged at lunch till 2:30. Is it 5:30 or dirty dive? And is the weekly shammock o'er? Will compulads and secretary ladies go frickle at the watering bore? She thigh-toed out the greeded door with Primarked elegance and ease, escorted by a bossy bull who thought she was a furtish tease. They fraggered down the crowd-rubbed street to Binny's Vino Barisette. He sat her in a cloister booth and fetched her gin and anisette. It's growing late, the secretary girl protested as he brought her more. Come, Bibblebive, he urged her, have a scroodle drive, a peridor. And so the night went woofing by. Let's body rub, he said to her. They found a room in Palmer's Green and fiddle-fingered up the stair. Come to my arms, my bossy boy. Tell me you have no woogie wife. He told her bylines, spun a tale about a simplifying life. But suddenly the door bursts wide. His Wookiee wife stands blawing there, with Lord Divorces at her side. Alice, don't fall off that chair. Where is that work I'm waiting for? That database to be completed? There's work to do, or there's the door. My fantasy deleted.
I was approaching my 60th birthday, and I decided that I would write all the Dónalls from 7 to 23 to 33 up to 60. And so I wrote the first poem for it. The first poem is now on the last page. My father and my brother died, and it became a book of grief and loss and love. But I used to be a supply teacher, and you go in as a supply teacher, and you've got a 2-hour class, and there is nothing prepared for it. And you have to wing through 2 hours. And the kids won't help you. You say, okay guys, what did you do last week? And they all go, we don't know. And then one little nerd at the back goes, please sir. I say, yes. We did the spinach armada. And I said, the spinach armada, eh? Ah, what did you do the week before? Silence again, we don't know. And then little fat guy at the back goes, please sir, we did Anne of Cleavage. And I thought, right, they're not going to go there. It's that kind of day, you know. I was year 7, and they were grasping history. And I went into year 8, and I said, okay, Pythagoras' theorem. And they all said, oh, wow, sir, would that be the triangle then? And I thought, what is everybody doing? And they're all talking in pirate voices like that. And I thought, far away from Pirate Day, far away from Eye Patch Day, what are they doing? So I just had to beat them at their own game. And I said, yes, as you can see, the sails on the hypotenuse, good ship hypotenuse, is equal to some of the sails on the other 2 sides. And they thought, right, he has us beaten. So a child was reading A. Milner's Now We Are 60. So this is called Now We Are 60. A year 8 child inquires, how old I be? I be just 60. He gasped, my God, you're very active for 60. 60 for him is a distant planet in a galaxy far, far from here. Yea, another dimension. I smile my 60-year-old smile, perfected by now. I am starlight that will only reach him when he himself is 60, if he ever remembers what he has long ago forgotten. Now, let's see what's in the book. Now, you may wonder why I go to the book, but I'm having trouble, so what I did is I put all the book up to a size that I could read for now. That's why we go to this book. Now, this is called Grandfather Gordon, and I used to look after a lovely man called Gordon, and he was a vet from the Second World War, an Alaman, and he showed me all pictures of all his friends, and they were all dead, and they all looked like they were 12. And there's pictures of them kicking a football made out of scraps of old uniform. And he said his father was also called Gordon. And his dad came back from the war minus a leg, minus his head, and totally lost. And his wife was so embarrassed by what came back to her that she told everybody that this white-haired man was her grandfather. So that's why he was known as Grandfather Gordon, although he was actually their father. So, the only time that he spoke to his son about what happened is when his son went to fight. And then his son came back, knew what it was like to kill somebody, knew what it was like not to be able to tell his daughter that he'd done that. She said, why did you have to kill a man? He said, it was the only way I could get back to you, to see my unborn baby. So, Grandfather Gordon. Grandfather Gordon, always scratching his wooden leg, insists it itches. Always a different explanation how he lost the leg, enough to fill a book. Grandfather Gordon scratching the air where his leg should be. Grandfather's Gordon wooden leg, now a Tommy gun, a sword, a unicorn straw horn. Give me back me leg, you daft wee buggers! Begging for his leg back. Grandfather Gordon's gone. His wooden leg lives on, dusty in the corner. I stroke his leg, remembering him. It itches in my heart. This has got my mum's mind. This is about the first time when I grew up. I was very small, and we used to jump off this big high wall, and it was like a triangle. And we used to go up to the highest part and jump off. We could have killed ourselves, but we didn't care about that. And when I saw her fear and her worry, that was the first time I realised that my mum was another person with feelings that could be hurt, be happy, and that she was a person in her own right. So this is me growing up. My mum's mind, the memory of my mother Rita. If you fall off that wall and break both your legs, don't come running to me. You'll never understand my mum's mind and how it worked. One moment she'd half a mind to come up there and get me off that wall. Then she was in 2 minds about whether to tell me to stop. Go ahead, kill yourself. See if I care. I'm warning you, child. If you fall off that wall and kill yourself, I'll personally come up there and kill you myself, so I will. I used to watch the words climbing out of her mouth, and fly around the room, looking for a place to land in my mind. Never cared whether she gave out. I just loved everything she said, the music of her and how she made the words behave. I came down and kissed her worry away. I'm sorry, ma'am, I told her, and she cried. Well, that's when you have to go. It's called Parallel Lines Do Not Meet. There's two things I was never any good at. One of them was mathematics and the other thing was happiness. So, yeah, we had Mr. Finnegan who used to beat us to death over it. You know, if you beat me, I'm not going to understand Pythagoras' theorem. So, it was called, and the only one thing I did understand was parallel lines do not meet. And I could see that, and then it had, except that infinity. And I thought, God damn it, I still don't understand that. So, happiness is not a mathematical formula that one can apply to supply an answer. Rather, it is the sum of who you are multiplied by who you're willing to be. Happiness, like mathematics, is something I was never ever good at, and always made me weep in equal parts desperation, exasperation, and frustration, or death for short. For example, if it took a man a lifetime to dig himself a hole, how long would it take for half the man he used to be to dig himself out again? Questions such as this only caused me grief. In mathematics like Latin, which I could also never know, I would cheat and repeat words full of sound and no sense, e.g. the cares of the hippopotamus are equal to the sum of the cares that the other two hippopotami could find. Happiness, like mathematics, was all Greek to me. I don't know, that's all right. But I do know that happiness happens every now and then. The only trick is to be aware that it's there and that parallel lines do meet at infinity. Thank you.
Oh, yes. Hell yes.
Right, let me see what else I got for you now. So, yeah, 7 times 7. This is called 7 times 7. I used to, as I said, I was no good at maths. And there was lots of things I was no good at when I was a little kid. My dad used to tie my shoes, he used to tie my tie, a lovely Windsor knot, and I couldn't do that, and I couldn't do this. I'm still have Janice would nearly tie my shoes for me now. Something I never learned. And we were in Prague when I wrote this, and it just came back about 7 times 7. 7 times 7 is, and I always get memory the audience go, 49! And of course that's an ellipsis, it's a rhetorical question. When I was 4, I fretted over things I couldn't do, like tie my tie, tie my shoe. Laces were beyond me, as were such things as 7 times 7 is... No, it's gone again. My dad would get it right every time, and I'd... forget it. Or he would tie my laces so they couldn't come undone, or do me a splendid Windsor knot. For the life of me, I simply could not. And when I grew up to be 5, would I know by then? Surely by 10? Was never sure about being sure. Ties, laces, timetables defeating me. My father all love and hugs and smiles. Now them I could do. And my father could pin a river down, a blue line flowing in an atlas, watching it wriggle under his tongue. Vltava, he'd commanded, and I would pause and listen to its name. He told me the river lived in Prague, and that was somewhere, forget it. And here I am, almost at 64, gazing at the Vltava in person. Know it for what it is, and all its swans, I even know where Prague is now. I stand in its December. My Father, who art in heaven, I pray to you as I would do when I was 2, you better than any God I could never imagine. So here I be in Praha, watching the waters of the Vltava, repeating a Czech tongue twister, laughing at its absence of vowels. Prit krits, skriz drin, split slit zern. What a howl. Still have trouble with those damn laces. My wife laughs as they come undone and come undone. Damn them. Can only make a bad stab at a Windsor knot. Get by not wearing a tie. Hugs and loves and smiles, I know them by heart. I hug you in my mind's eye. Know that 7 times 7 is and always will be. Sorry, so what? What does the Czech proverb mean? Oh, don't ask me that soon. Right then. Prit krit, skriz drin, priv slit hrs zern means a mole farted through grass having swallowed a handful of grain. Now you know, Sue. Go on, we don't have time, lovey.
Oh, I wasn't looking.
More.
You've done 10 minutes. We've done 10 and a half minutes.
You do one more.
This is called Oscailga, which means in Irish. And half the poem is in Irish and half the poem is in English, but it's okay. I'll translate as I go along. Myself and my Finnish wife longed to have a baby, and despite many hours practice, no baby didn't materialize. So we went for test after the test, and one last test. This is probably too much information for you to see if the tubes, the fallopian tubes, were clear. And we were going for this, and it was cancelled for 6 months. And then we went for it again the next 6 months, and it was cancelled again. And we had to wait 6 months again, and in that time we fell pregnant. Notice how I used the royal we there? Yeah? And I used to lie down by her belly, and I know very little Irish, and I used to sing all the little scraps of Irish like a patchwork quilt of language to her belly, to this unborn child. So that's what comes into this too. So dún do sula, close your eyes. Cuddle go law ma grosiv, sleep until day, my gentle love. Cuddle go sov, sleep peacefully, peacefully. I roke and gyalach shot is rocking and green shafi. This moon will rise, this sun will set. Aragus groi goni, ara love and care always. Gach ihas, gach laws, gach iha. Every night, every day, every night. Ma clurin, ma storin, ma moorin, my little flower, my little treasure, my little darling. Achanish, but now, cuddle gosov gosiv, sleep peacefully, gently, Gafonia on lay, until the break of day. And Misha are the Tave, with me at your side. Losing our baby late into the night, holding this little thing that only attempted to be human. Unable to let go, I clasped the fetus tightly in my hand and buried her in the dawn of a nearby local park under a recently planted red rose bush. In my grief, flower and baby became one, and night after night I climbed over high railings and even higher stars to talk to her in the dark in Irish, or sing my love is like a red, red rose, or cry. Almost got arrested one night by an Irish cop, drawn to the sound of Irish emerging from darkness. Guess he let me go because it wouldn't look good on a charge street. The defendant was talking and crying to a flower in Irish. Esht, listen. Dinna egin ne kina, someone is crying in a darkasan, in his darkness. Phil Aruno, oh, Phil Aruno is now imi Philarum Hakushla sto, oh. It's Chifik to and glow. Thank you.
A few more. Wait a minute, is that the right one? Yes, I think it is. Okay, sort of Dorsety kind of poems, or this kind of part of the world. Bridport people will remember that for a while there was a place called the Girls' Own Store. And I used to go there pretty well every time I went to Bridport. And there was always this particular stick that used to go on between me and her. This is Running Dog. She always gave me the impression that she was sad, sat at her counter as she always sat, her crochet hook snagging in and out between the coloured loops with unflagging deliberation. The shop was all about the 50s, even if some of her wares were remakes. Brown teapots, improving books for children about the lives of dragonflies and medieval costume. A porcelain squirrel dressed as a housemaid, carrying a tray of tea. Her enormous battleship greyhound lay on the flags like a discarded Macintosh across the entrance to the back room, where the loveliest of her creations were displayed in folded piles. Should I say something? Should I risk expressing my admiration when I know she'll barely acknowledge me, even when I hand over my money? Sometimes when a friend was coming, I'd lay one of her diminutive lacy coverlets, worked in yellow, black and emerald rosettes, across the pillows. Something has to give, I thought. Something has to give. Then she left. The shop had closed. Christmas was in the offing. I saw a promotion for handmade socks online. They arrived, a little on the hairy side, and I embroidered them with a running dog motif around the cuffs. And as it was a thing that people do these days, I posted them on Instagram. Spring came wet and wild. I saw an ad for a display of work by local artisans, and as I approached the place across the muddy grass, she stepped towards me, calling out, "You pimped my socks. You pimped my socks."
Is that, Annie, is that
Don't we
true?
all?
It's true. All my poems only are all completely factual. All. Quando eravamo giovani e io portavo una minigonna stampata con i giorni della settimana. Come ti volevo, mamma, eri così imbarazzante. No, tesoro mio, mi ricordi di niente, niente. Quando eravamo felici in quei giorni, guarda, penso che siamo tornate dove è cominciato. Fermati qui, c'è un parcheggio, non è lontano. Piove, torniamo a casa presto.
Exactly.
Okay. It's just difficult to focus, isn't it? Okay. This is These Days I Fall. This is the cancer section of my book. And I had this tiny, tiny little doll, like this high, that sort of came into my possession. I think I paid £3.50 for her. These days I fall. These days I fall for any old thing. See this quaint little plastic doll, found by chance in a pop-up shop, a gift for the 12th night feast. She stands there in her Scots costume, her black velvet jacket on the dusty side, a scrap of torn lace around her throat, her poor plaid held with a safety pin, the insignia of a humble clan. Her fixed stare, though her eyelids close, ready for the ambush that lies ahead. Her coiffure, dull and soft, is that hair real? Caitlin, saviour, soothsayer, fetish, fairy, spirit, my immortelle.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now just a few from the other one. People will remember, some years ago, the Buckingham Palace had a sort of poet night. And there was a great deal of sort of thing happening in return. Did you admit you'd been invited? No, you didn't admit you had, or did you admit you haven't? And there was a sort of nervous embarrassedness, and you know, we knew that nothing interesting was going to happen. There might be some cake, there might be a glass of wine. It's all very, very odd. And there was a certain amount of sort of poisonous going on. Anyway, the night that it happens, this is what I dreamt. Royal visit. The Queen arrived late that night, and after several cups of tea, asked to be shown to her room. The communication I'd received from the palace was that her presence would not require any alteration to our plans, and that her only need was to have some privacy at this trying time. Beyond light and regular meals, nothing elaborate was required. They must have given her some idea where she'd be staying. She was no fool. She knew her subjects, and yet. D and M were also staying with us, and you don't just ask people to leave because the Queen is staying with you. In any case, our friends are assets, the kind who do anything to make things go smoothly in whatever circumstances. While we were getting ready for her arrival, Em caught me staring at a china dish, one of several, that contained seashells, a hyacinth bulb, and drill bits. Her expression said, just roll with it. And of course Dee and Em were tickled pink to be sleeping under the same roof. Think of us as the couple, Dee said, like you see in The Lady, a benign janitorial presence. A semblance of the protocols having been observed, and the aforementioned cups of tea having been duly drunk. The Queen retired for the night, slept, woke, washed, breakfasted with us wearing a kind of lime green straw sou'wester, and spent the morning in her room with the day's papers, whereupon each one addressed him or herself to his or her allotted task, towel supply, soap check, bathroom monitoring, hiding, rubbish, etc. This is quite a sad poem. It's where in village life couples breaking up become terribly, strangely public, leaving do. Monday week was the day she gave, Monday week was the date she gave as she moves from one box to another. The china has been bubble wrapped, and now it's time for the pictures and ornaments. A new life in a new house in another town with new neighbours. He was a good man, well liked, but it's over, and she doesn't want him back. She sets out bottles of sherry, plastic cups, and chocolate biscuits on paper plates. Crude, she thinks, but that's what I'm left with. Crude things, crude thoughts, crude gestures. Abbotsbury.
Oh.
Now, this was a day, some years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe a bit more, and it was like there had been for 10 days a storm going and going and going. So that the house shook, everything shook, everything shook, everything was wet, everything shook. And there was no food in the house, there was nothing fresh, and I sort of like couldn't have another burger out of the freezer. It was just disgusting, and I thought, I've got to get out, I've got to get some fresh carrots or some cabbage or something, because I'll go my diffident. Anyway, Abbotsbury. A storm had been hitting the house for a week, making a crazy old woman of me. The wind blew so loud it had swallowed my mind, with the bin bags foul and the phone line down. Desperate for something fresh from the shops, I bounced the car forward over the ruts, and turning the corner onto the road, I heard you calling, "Please take care," and the wind swatted the words away. I took the dog-legged route downhill, the road, a rippling torrent of stones, past the pallet farm and the disused cattery, the sandbags, houses empty and drear, then up and up, on the narrow straight road through pine woods, black and steep on both sides, to the top of the cliff where the land fell away, to a close-cropped turf of acid green, bathed in the golden light of the sun that flashed like a blade through the roofless chapel, and with 1,000 squirming tentacles there was a sea in aquamarine, streaked with copper and platinum, and all around me the black-faced ewes were tearing the grass out of the ground, and far away the tender hills were fringed with the powdery shapes of the trees, and there again was the sea so glorious I wanted to shout, "Oh God, oh God!" And still the close-cropping sheep continued, tearing the grass out of the ground. And to finish, this is the view from Lancan Bottom. It was one of those sort of Dorset Indian summers where after a really crappy August, but it was amazing September, and then in the mid-afternoon, that was the best time of the day. The sun was hot. It was like the rebirth of the day. It would come out hotter and brighter and bigger, and at that point I'd leave the house and go up the hill with my paint box for about an hour and a half every day till this was done. And while I was doing it, I was reading the letters of the painter John Constable, and I found in it something that lots and lots of painters say about themselves when they're painting, and it's very life-changing for me. And when I came back down the hill in the Land Rover, it was like I felt like I was a hunter, and I was carrying my prey, my quarry, on my back, and I'd shot it for the family, and I'd sort of killed some important food for us all to eat. This is called The View from Lankham Bottom. I sit on the slope with my paint box and brushes, asking the questions that Constable asks: what to put in, what to ignore, decisions made on plein air, the whine of a faraway saw, the roar of the cars passing by on the road, merge with the lisp of my brushstrokes, whose secretive language consoles and protects me. The roar of the cars passing by on the road merge with the lisp of my brushstrokes, whose secretive language consoles and protects me from fear of rejection and thoughts of decline. My eyes ache with looking, my hands in a race against time. Left to itself, it would paint every vein, every stump, the sun in the mist, the dew on the grass. The colours are there in the hedges and skies, the gullies and shadows, the sheep and the cows, the culverts and valleys of Southover, Powerstock, Askerswell, Egerton, Rampisham, Wraxall and Swire. The picture I'm painting will have no companion. No other has ever been painted till now. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for coming, everybody, and listening to us all. I'm just going to end with some poems myself from my most recent collection, Flitting Sunlight, which really chronicles the last 23 months of my son Mark's life. So that's why I'm going to do that, because obviously that's what we're here in aid of tonight. So. I'll start with the first one that I wrote on the day he was diagnosed. Mothers and sons. I thought I knew all about mothers, all about sons. Thought I knew all there was to know. That was then, when words like as and when and tomorrow meant something completely different. I wanted the book to not just chronicle the events though, I wanted it to sort of explore the science a little bit as well. So Mark was a doctor, so he's very interested in science. So this one's called Grenades. Grenades bottled with your blood have taken almost 12 years to silently explode within your vital organs. On the scans, they look like craters, evidence for the pain you had on Wednesday, the dry cough you've had for weeks, the night sweats you blamed on a warm duvet for a mild winter. Because this was when he developed the secondaries. He'd had 12 years where all was well from the original melanoma. Just going to pick out a few. Yeah, I mean, this one's another one about science terminology. Getting my tongue around words like dabrafenib, ipilimumab, pembrolizumab. Getting my mind around statistics, percentages, survival rates. Getting excited about lactate dehydrogenase and liver function tests. Getting my heart around the love, that demands a miracle from science. There is no law for cancer. It arrives slap bang in the middle of your ordinary life and makes it extraordinary. You can kick it with experimental drugs and treatments, but most of the time it will kick you. Multiply, evolve, grow more wits than you can ever grow. It brings your friends running and it sends them away, their faces awash with tears. It invades the organs that make your life possible, and it intensifies yours, so that each and every second have meaning. It puts you in never, never not knowing land, not knowing, not feeling, not falling, because you may not have time to pick up pieces. It makes you weaker than you thought possible. It makes you stronger than you ever wanted to be.